For real though, this is the best thing they put out in 20 years. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another video with the Monkey Sensing Sensei. And today, I'll be showing off my unboxing and first impressions of the brand new Green Day album, Saviors. This album just came out January 19th of this year, and we're going to be doing an unboxing and first impressions of this beast. Now, right here, I have the CD copy, Digipack, and the first thing to notice upon first impressions, look at the size of the Digipack. And then let's take a regular Digipack like Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast, classic, and just look at the size. This is gonna fit so awkwardly on my shelf. I don't really know why they did that, but this is the new Green Day album, Saviors, the 14th studio album. Can't believe they have that many by now. I really love the artwork for this. It's very black, purple, very Ramones-like. And I really like that. And that's really the attitude with this new album. It's going back to basics. Very much that Dookie Insomniac kind of style in terms of some of the music on here. There's the gatefold. I love that. They're just sitting in the lounge chairs. Like they're taking a break from recording this beast of an album. I mean, talk about a beast of an album. There's 15 tracks on here. Clocked at about 46 minutes. Here's the CD. Love the artwork for this. This kind of reminds me of a cross between the Trilogy and 21st Century Breakdown. Maybe a little bit of Revolution Radio too mixed in there. Come with a booklet, album cover of Saviors. I don't know what the kid with the rocks and the I didn't do it pose has anything to do with Saviors, but still cool artwork nonetheless. And purple is my favorite color, and I especially love this deep, dark version of purple. I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. The booklet has got a bunch of lyrics. More lyrics. A little bit of smudging on Goodnight Adeline. I don't know what that's about. I've seen other booklets with the same thing, so either it's a printing issue or it's meant as an artistic choice. More lyrics. It's starting to sound very familiar, isn't it? Just features lyrics for the songs. More lyrics for the songs. More lyrics. More lyrics. And finally, we got more credits. And this awesome Polaroid of the guys right there. And one thing I love about this album was that it was produced by Rob Cavallo. Rob Cavallo is back. Many Green Day fans know he's essentially the fourth member of Green Day, who's not Jason White. The production style, just the overall sound of everything. And Chris Lord-Alge is one of my favorite mixers. He's mixed a lot of albums like Does Look Infected from Sum 41. And he's been on various other bands that he's mixed and recorded. So that's a formula for success right there. I'm not sure if it's going to show up on camera, but there's a little bit of that smudging on the back too. That might just be the artistic choice of the album to have that on here. Maybe it's like the smudge of the American Dream. I don't know what we're going to talk about in a minute here. But still pretty cool either way, whether it's an artistic choice or it's like, oh, someone spilled ink in the factory. And speaking of the American Dream, let's talk about the first single that dropped from the album. The American Dream Is Killing Me. I remember when the song first came out and they showed the video, they were teasing the zombies and the whole like apocalyptic theme of this album. And I thought that was really cool. And the video came out and I really love the video. There's a little clip of Mike holding the bass. He's kind of like trying to bite the zombies back. And he's trying to fight the zombies while they're playing the song. And we knew right from the get-go that this was going to be a totally different animal to Father of All, which was an album that I enjoyed, but it was very half-baked. A lot of the songs were like 2 minutes long. They were very poppy. There was a lot of cringy lyrics. I mean, look, the marketing. I'm going to try to show a photo here, but the marketing was just really boomer, for lack of a better term, and very cringy, to say the least. And there were good songs on there. I liked Sugar Youth. I liked the title track. Graffiti was a great little closer to the album, but it only clocked in at about 26 minutes, so there really wasn't much to digest. And you could tell it was something that the band wanted to just kind of get out there before they left Reprise, which is weird though, because this is actually on Reprise too. I thought the band left Reprise. Maybe they had to do one more album and then they could leave. I don't know. But either way, that album just wasn't what we wanted from a Green Day record. But I think this album fixes just about every issue the last album had. I think this album ticks the box for every single era of the band. You have more political, hard-hitting songs on here, like The American Dream is Killing Me, and Strange Days Are Here to Stay with its Basket Case sort of groove. The little bit of a throwback to Basket Case. If you listen to them back to back, you'll definitely hear that. And then Living in the 20s, which is this crazy song. There's some really cool lines in there that he throws out. Then the second single that came out with Look Ma No Brains is a throwback to their Insomniac era, if you can believe it. It's pretty punky and heavy, about 2 minutes, straight to the point. I love a lot of the lyrical themes on that too. It really alleviates the tone of the first song, where that one is in your face, more political, like we're back to this American Idiot, 21st Century Breakdown kind of sound. But then they're like, okay, we're going to throw you a little heavy, fun curveball. And I love Bobby Sox. At first, I wasn't sure about Green Day yelling, do you want to be my girlfriend? Do you want to be my boyfriend? But then further inspection, you realize this is a song about Billy Joe meeting his wife in the 90s. And so there's a different perspective switch. And it really showcases Billy Joe's talents as a songwriter. As if we didn't get enough of that in the early days of the band and on their rock opera-centric albums. It really shows that Billy Joe can still write a great song with a great hook. And then the next two songs are the fourth single and the third single dropped from the record. So Dilemma comes after One-Eyed Bastard, but Dilemma was the third single that was dropped for the album. And this is more of a personal song for Billy Joe. Really bringing up his stint in rehab and trying to stay clean amidst the punk rock and rock and roll lifestyle. The video showcases them in a club. There's actually a sign that says, no sniffing cocaine or no cocaine here. And then you just see them sniffing cocaine. Obviously, it's not real. But I just think that's really cool dichotomy. Like, it's so punk rock, man. Like, don't step on the grass, but you're stepping on the grass anyway. And I think Dilemma has this certain emotional power behind it. Not only in the lyrics, but also the breakdown after the chorus. I just love when he says, I was sober, now I'm drunk again. Which seems so cliche, but coming out of Billy Joe, who we know was in rehab, it really comes through clear. This song reminds me of the Sum 41 song, War, with that track also having somewhat cliche, generic lyrics. But if you know the backstory of what Derek Whibley went through before writing the song, then it becomes more clear as to why that song had to come out. And then One-Eyed Bastard is just a fun little trip, man. Like, that song is so heavy, and that is a reminiscent of Insomniac as well. Very just heavy, in your face, very tongue-in-cheek lyrical content. It's kind of like that Insomniac kind of like fuck you sort of a mentality, where it's just like, it reminded me of 86. A lot of the 86 vibes coming off of this song. It's not as speedy as that. It's more of just like a throwdown, heavy, thrashy time. But I really love the breakdown of the guitars in that middle section. The little bit, again, a little more heavier than we're used to from this era of Green Day. And I've heard a lot of people say that the riff of this song is a heavier ripoff of the Pink song, So What? And yeah, it kind of is. It's very much that same melody, but I like this song a lot more. Like, this is like them taking that kind of riff and just making it a heavy punk thrasher. And that's literally it for all the singles that came out. The first four singles are the first four songs in the album practically, minus Bobby Sox. Everything else on here at the back half is all album deep tracks. So once you get your first taste of the singles, then you have a good 10 tracks of just amazing deep cuts to dive into. Starting with one of my favorites on here, 1981. This is such a ear candy of a track. It's so Ramones, it's so punk, it's so powerful. Just makes you want to headbang as soon as it comes on. And this is one of the songs that they teased on their earlier live shows. And I think for me, this is one of the songs that you'd want to have in the live set. It really showcases the more fun, punky attitude that this album is going for. Again, that very throwback to the 90s style of Green Day. And when it comes to ballads, there's not too many on here, but the two that are on here are stellar. My favorite being the next track, Goodnight Adeline. This is such a great little heartwarming ballad that really breaks up the mood of all the heavier tracks on the album. It's slows things down a little bit. It's more of a power ballad more than it is an actual like downtrodden ballad. The next ballad, close to the end of the album, Father to a Son, is more of like the traditional kind of downtrodden ballad. Again, beautiful song, but we'll get there. Goodnight Adeline, though, powerful lyrics. I love the guitar solo on it. It's just the perfect length, clocking in a little bit over 3.5 minutes. It's just a beautiful song. And something else I wanted to bring up about this album is the track sequencing and the track listing. I feel like the overall flow of this album is perfect with a few of the heavier cuts, and then you get Goodnight Adeline, great ballad, and then opening up the next half of the album with another great song, Coma City. This song is very reminiscent of Murder City from 21st Century Breakdown. I'm not sure if that was intentional, but I still love it anyway. The great little fast punk rock rager, very reminiscent of the aforementioned album. Again, kind of more on that political, more socially conscious lyrical side, which I love when this band does. I was hoping we would get another style of rock opera from Green Day when I heard they were going back to the more political leanings of American Idiot and 21st Century Breakdown. But I think what we have here is good enough for now until we do get that eventual rock opera. And upon first impressions of the next track, Corvette City, I wasn't sure what to think. It's one of the weird oddball songs in here. It's kind of like Troublemaker from Uno if I had to compare something more modern. It's like Troublemaker. Picture that song, but it's a little bit better produced. It's still in that vein of the sound of this album, so it does kind of fit. But to me, it's definitely the oddball out here. Billy Joe's singing lyrics about want to put on my records and have fun with rock and roll and don't mess around with my rock and roll. It's like, it's kind of a weird song to put on here, but I've really grown to love it because of its kind of black sheep feel of the overall sound of this record, where it still kind of fits, but it still has some spots on it. Like, it fits, but it's just like a little bit more, it's fun. Again, it's kind of that, they're taking some of the fun parts of the trilogy and blending it into this album as well. The same thing with Bobby Sox. And I can say all the same things about the next one, Susie Chapstick. I think that's another great little fun song. A little more on the mid-tempo, slower side, but again, a great pace breaker for what's about to come next. And what comes next is Strange Days Are Here to Stay. This is another highlight of the album for me. Like I mentioned before, it has the same chord progression as Basket Case, has that same sort of melody, but it's really propped up by Billy Joe's lyrical content. Again, socially conscious, a little on the political bent, and I think that's perfect for a song like this. The Basket Case, in a way, is kind of socially conscious. It's really showcasing the anxiety and mental health that people face. And again, that was a song that came out in the 90s. So being very ahead of its time when that came out. And I think having a song that sounds like that, but being written from a more modern 2022, 2023 perspective, when this was written, is just perfect. Not to mention, I love the music and the guitar work on it too. And I gotta bring up, speaking of guitar work, Billy Joe is on fire, not only with the lyrics, but I love the guitar work on here too. And Mike, oh man, Mike is back in full force on here. This guy here, he is showing why he's one of the best bass players of all time, especially in the punk scene. Just, Rob Cavallo pushed Mike up to a level where you can actually hear him. Like, thank God, after about 3 or 4 albums of Mike just not being present, or he's just kind of whittling around, it's just, you can finally hear him. If anything, this title suggests that Mike has finally been saved from bass boredom, propping up Trey's fantastic drumming, which is booming and extremely loud from the speakers. And it just pounds out this entire album, whether it's a power ballad or a punk track. He's just punctuating everything and just adding a bow on top of this wonderful album present. And going back to Living in the 20s, this song is kind of a funny one. There's a line on here where he says, I bought a robot and I'm fucking it senseless. I heard that. I'm like, whoa, okay. All right. I see what you're doing here. It really brings up a lot of things about AI, and emerging technologies. And again, I love when he says it's a kick in the head because, yeah, it's an old 20s song. I believe it's an old 20s song. But he's bringing it into the more modern era with Father to a Son. Now, this to me is a sequel to Wake Me Up When September Ends, which is one of my favorite Green Day songs. It's beautiful. It's heart-wrenching. But it's one of the best songs that Billy Joe ever wrote. And to me, this song is a great sort of sequel to that. He's writing it about his father who passed away when he was just a kid. And I think this song really elaborates Billy Joe's affection for his father, who really showed him the music that he grew up with, like the Beatles and all these other big acts that he grew to love, that really influenced Green Day's writing style going forward. And you could just really see the affection that he has for his father on this song. And I think one of the best parts about it is that Billy Joe is now a father to a, I think, 20-something-year-old kid who has his own band. So he's writing from a different perspective of being a father now with his own kids. And now that Billy Joe himself and the whole band are in their 50s now, when this came out, I think it really shows the sonic maturity and the lyrical maturity of this band. Now, if I had to pick one weak song on this, if I had to pick, I love every track on here, but if I had to pick one weak track, I'd probably pick the title track. I think it's a little bit of a drag. It's not bad. It's not something I'd necessarily skip, especially since it's the penultimate track. I mean, we're at the very end of the album, and there's no point in skipping anything now. But everything else on here being so fantastic and masterful and just, it just seems a little underwhelming in comparison. Closing out this amazing masterpiece of a record, we have the closing track in oddly titled Fancy Sauce. Now, when I looked down the track listing when this first came out, when they first announced the track listing, I saw that the closer is called Fancy Sauce. I thought this was going to be a Trey Cool kind of like polka number or like a Mike Dirnt kind of thing, or they were going to do the whole big rock opera kind of suite where they have Billy singing and then they have Mike and Trey doing their little bits, kind of like Homecoming, where they each get a little part to sing. But no, it's nothing like that at all. If I had one complaint with this album, is that there isn't that one longer piece to end it out. You don't have any Forever Nows or Dirty Rotten Bastards or Homecoming, Jesus of Suburbia. There's nothing like that on this album. Being that this is a sort of a back to basics sort of album with that political bent of the rock operas, that's not really what they were going for, and I could see that. But getting back to Fancy Sauce, this is a great song. I really like, again, the chord progression is great, but it starts off as somewhat of a ballad, but then it does get kind of heavy, and I really love Billy Joe's lyrics on here. Again, very introspective, very from the heart, and I think overall, this album is the most passionate that they've been since probably American Idiot. Revolution Radio was very passionate and personal too, but that also had its social, economical, kind of political bent on it and a few of the tracks. But I think that this album overall is the best of all worlds. And taking an album like Revolution Radio, for instance, that album was very much a comeback record for the band. After Billy Joe had gone into rehab, Green Day took a few years off. They really had time to take a break and refresh, recharge their batteries. And they wrote a great album that's both punky, political, and also very personal. And that's the album that they needed to make at the time. But it was very much more 21st Century Breakdown, American Idiot, not as much in the way of the early records. They really had moved away from that. But I think taking a few years off again, making a very subpar album in 2020, Father of All MF, but then coming back with an album like this to me is the best of all worlds. But that's going to do it for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed my little unboxing, my showcase, my mini review of Saviors from Green Day. Suffice to say, this is one of my favorite Green Day albums now. This is the best thing that they put out in, I'd say, 20 years. No hyperbole, no hype. This thing is the real deal. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. A thumbs up always helps the channel. Make sure to swing on over to that subscribe button to join our Musical Monk family. Slap that notification bell so you'll be notified when I upload a new video to the channel. I got a bunch of cool stuff coming, CD hauls, vinyl hauls. I'm going to show off the vinyl version of this album. There's a lot in store coming up on the channel, so stay tuned. Don't forget to listen to Rush. And for all my fellow monks out there, don't forget to keep spinning those discs. Punk-centric vibes of this album. And they follow up that same sort of motif as the beginning of the album with a ballad, Good Night Angeline, or Adeline,